Hello everyone and welcome to my new tier list update for, well, Sacred Seals. This time we'll be looking at the last 2 Tempest Trial instead of only 1 because I decided to just do both at the same time. Before we start, I guess I should mention the fact that Show Me Your Build will make a comeback tomorrow at 3:30 PM EST. And if you want to participate, do join Discord, but also please do read the pin if you want to participate, because at the end of the day, if you don't really follow the directive, I can't really just do anything with this. So yeah. And with that out of the way, let's talk about the seals itself. Oh, actually, another thing. The tier list update for the GHB/Tempest Trial tier list might come out tomorrow, but don't just expect it, because at the end of the day, I changed a lot of rankings. I ended up adding a new tier, so going through every bit of changes might prove to be a bit more difficult than just a 30-minute video. It might be more past an hour, so yeah. Sorry about that, but, well, it was something that had to be done. The refined tier list will also have a similar video whenever we get the refines. Hopefully Leaf is good. I'm hoping at the very least that the base effect is adaptability and the second is something like Special Spiral or something like that. But with that said, I suppose we should actually talk about the video, shall we? So, before we talk about the new seals, I decided to move around Artie Bearing from its ludicrously low ranking to S tier, because at this point, well, it's the type of seal that's used a lot because of the AoE sets, because of also Vantage, because Vantage is more and more used at this point. For example, if you're dealing with an Altina, imagine an Altina not running Vantage. That would be new. Too bad that you don't really see that ever. So, Hardy Bearing is good to deal with that, for example. Also, it's good for your AoE users so they don't get Vantaged, and so on and so forth. It's a fairly good seal for AAR, but as far as other modes are concerned, well, it's starting to become a bit more prominent, purely because Altina is such a pain to deal with. But other than that, it's not as required. It's mostly for AR, where Advantage is more or less king, I'd say. It's definitely one of the most annoying thing to deal with. Just think of Kronya, just think of Vantage Levitain, which is one of the most used unit in like really high tier AR, so yeah. It's a good way to deal with those. Anyway, before we talk about the other seals, these seals have been added to the Forge like a month ago at this point. If you want to make them, they are now available. Chill Def is pretty good, and the other 2 are very situational. Well, Defiant Attack is just not situational, it's just straight garbage. Don't bother with this trash. That said, Swift Stance is fairly solid. Depending on the unit, it's just like Steady Posture, it's a very situational type of skill. You typically just want it because you want an extra bump in the speed, and your def is higher than your res. That's really it. There's not much else to it. Now, let's talk about the best seal ever added, Warding Blow. I don't think I have much to say about this one. It's just Armored Blow, but even less relevant. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. It's not good. So, yeah, it's the type of seal that you'll basically get and you'll be like, what is this? And just dump it in the nearest dumpster you can find, because you'll never be using this seal, really. Especially since Mirror Strike is going to come down at one point. I mean, we have Swiss Sparrow, we have Sturdy Blow. What's stopping them from doing Mirror Blow, right? Mirror Blow? Mirror Strike. It's just overall filler, I guess would be the best way to put it. It's filler for a Tempest Trial, just like Defiant skills were just filler. They're not meant to be seals you'll actually use. They're just meant to be there for the sake of being there. So, not much else to say about this one. HP Def 2, actually a bit more useful this time. It's a bit iffy still. It's mostly if you want to have just a bit more bulk. Typically you will not want to use it too much because there are so many more and just better options, especially with, like, you know, steady stance, most likely sturdy stance whenever that gets added. Bracing stance also whenever that gets added. And not to mention every bond seal out there. There are so many seals that are just overall better. The only thing that is good about double stat seals is just the fact that you don't have any requirement to fulfill for it to be in effect. It's just always is in effect. But HP with a second stat is typically not great. The only units that actually make use of that fairly decently are Aversa and Varian. The problem with those two is that they prefer speed and attack, so HP def is kind of meh. It can be helpful here or there, but typically it's not really a seal you'll be maxing. Next up is Speed Feint. Now we're actually starting to get into the semi-decent one. Speed Feint is actually really solid just because if you really rely on chill speed for arena, well, dump that garbage, because now you actually have a decent option, because chill has so many problems. It only affects one character unless they both have the same stat in speed somehow. It might affect the one that's the most furthest back away from you, meaning that the chill is completely wasted. And or it's just not really helpful because you just don't get it happening at the right moment. Feint, just completely throw that out the window. Speed Feint is basically allowing you to get 7 speed off of someone of your choosing just because they're in a cardinal direction with you. There is no check between your stats and theirs, which makes it so much more wieldy. It is not too great outside of arena where you don't actually use rallies, unless you are one of those weird people that actually, you know, use rally outside of those mode. Outside of characters like, obviously, legendary Eliwood, for example. Which, I mean, in which case, more power to you, but it's definitely at its best in arena. And arena assault as well, to some extent. So yeah, it's overall a fairly decent seal. I would definitely say, if you're struggling with Speedster in arena, this is a must max. Personally, I don't. I prefer attack feint as a result. But if you're not scoring as high as I do, you'll typically find Speedster a lot more often than I do. So it might be helpful to you. Next up is Steady Posture, and gotta say, felt really weird to be actually happy to get that seal in, but that's mostly for a build in particular. It's not exactly the type of seal you'll be using a ton. However, it is a fairly decent seal overall and can be used in the same manner as, well, Swift Stance. The difference is that 4 def is a lot more useful than 4 res when it's in combat. The problem is, a lot of the mage are either with a spec ready in AR, or they use an AoE, and AoE just completely ignores your in-combat buffs because it's at start of combat. It's just overall a mess. So it's better to just run something that gives you defense instead, because defense will be more reliably useful. At least in AR, and outside of AR, well, even then, it's fairly solid. Bonds are overall better. We don't have speed def bonds yet, but even then, stance tend to be a bit better just because you don't have to be afraid of being, you know, in a pack with someone. You can just be wherever you want to be and you'll be just fine. That opens a lot of avenue. It's overall decent. Like I said, it comes down to, do you have a unit that's speedy but not exactly speedy enough that just kind of want to have that extra bit of stats and is mostly enemy phase, then it's a great idea for you. Moving on to Distant Guard now. So Distant Guard is a bit of a weird one. Right now, I think it's an okay seal. Do I think it's really worth upgrading? Absolutely. At the same time, not really. It's mostly because at the end of the day, you'll probably be comboing Distant Guard with Close Guard, and that's just 4 death, 4 res. Cool, cool, cool. Double drive is like 3-3. And does not require you to fodder like an important unit for it. The thing is, Distant Guard is probably the worst of the two. Close Guard is at least very consistently helpful. Dragons, Beasts, Axe, Lance, Sword. There's just so many units that you can actually, you know, take less damage from. Distant Guard is a staff unit, which you'll never try to bait unless you have no Sea Disrupt. Already a bad start. Dagger and bows, which you don't typically want to bait any of them, just because, well, first off, one of them is Alm, and the other one is daggers in general, which will debuff your entire party, then get danced typically, which is not exactly ideal. Unless you kill them, which that fixes a lot of issues, but is overall just eh. And magic. Magic is actually a fair point. Magic is there a lot. Magic is everything. That said, again, as I said, AoEs and instant specials are typically what you'll have to deal with. Distant Guard is just a bit of an awkward skill. I would say it's still worth upgrading, but that's why it's only in S- and not higher. Let's just put it that way. It's a good buff, but personally, Close Guard is going to just be miles better. So, moving on to the big one, Swift Sparrow. I don't think I have to explain what this seal is. You just get 4 attack and speed on initiation. It's pretty solid. I'd say sometimes you'll prefer attack speed too, purely because AoEs prefer to have, you know, out of combat stats, because that gives you more stats in combat. Still, Swift Sparrow is a fantastic option and will actually be extremely helpful for a lot of units. Example would be Jamke. If you have not decided to merge him too much, Swift Sparrow actually just picks you apart, essentially, or picks you up, I guess would be the better way to put this. It will provide you speed where it matters and attack, which... Is there a Brave Bow unit that does not want attack? Jamke is a bit awkward at lower merges because his base speed is a bit low, so Sparrow is really good at fixing that. And there are plenty of others, but I think at this point most people can kind of guess. So Sparrow is not exactly a rare seal to see. Or not seal, but a skill to see, let alone seal. Especially now. It's still not that great as an A slot, but as a seal, it's just insane. 4 attack and speed for basically free is really good. In a lot of cases as your A skill, just because you're kind of stuck in between of two things. You either have too much speed because of the skill, or you still don't have enough. It's really hard to hit that just middle, because then on enemy phase, you'll typically get doubled for it, which is just extremely awkward for you to go through. Still, as a seal, where you're not exactly reliant on a 7 speed increase, well, it's not that bad. It's not that bad at all. It's definitely welcome, if anything. But, yeah. Definitely a seal I would upgrade. Besides, it costs almost nothing because it's only 1 upgrade. And I think that's about all I have to say about these seals. These seals are okay. Swift Sparrow is the main one. Speed Feint is really good for arena. Distant Def can be good here or there. And Steady Posture is a bit, what's the word? Restrictive, or a bit more limited in the amount of unit that can actually use it fairly decently. The other two seals are just filler, let's be honest. So yeah, it's overall not bad. I do think that Swiss Sparrow, I was actually expecting Swiss Sparrow to be out way later, so this is honestly kind of surprising to me. Still, I mean, it's a nice surprise, isn't it? And well, I suppose that in conclusion, I'm still waiting for Speed Def Bond. I'm still waiting for Brazen Def Res. But this will do for now. I'm kinda shocked that we got Swiss Sparrow before Brazen Def Res, but I mean, whatever, right? Anyway, with that said, I'll be seeing you all in the comments. Have a nice one, everyone, and I'll see you at Show Me Your Build. Have a nice rest of the day or night, whichever it is for you. See ya!